Leaving them toys at home next time, huh? The flight attendant's voice dripped with something nasty, and the kid, no older than 13, tops, just looked up, tears tracking through the apple juice soaking her fancy laptop. "It's not a toy," she choked out. "It's my business." A snort ripped from the flight attendant's throat. Business? Please, that's when I knew. This wasn't about spilled juice. It was about a kid, a black girl at that, daring to exist where she wasn't supposed to. They all laughed, these smug first-classers, but they didn't know what I knew. They had no idea that her quiet kindness will change everything. See, what they didn't see was the gold cross around her neck, a promise whispering, "Don't let the world make you hard." "Leaving them toys at home next time, huh?" The flight attendant's voice dripped with something nasty, and the kid, no older than 13, tops, just looked up, tears tracking through the apple juice soaking her fancy laptop. "It's not a toy," she choked out. "It's my business." A snort ripped from the flight attendant's throat. Business? Please. That's when I knew. This wasn't about spilled juice. It was about a kid, a black girl at that, daring to exist where she wasn't supposed to. They all laughed, these smug first-classers, but they didn't know what I knew. They had no idea that her quiet kindness will change everything. See, what they didn't see was the gold cross around her neck, a promise whispering, "Don't let the world make you hard." 24 hours earlier, Naomi Carter stood before her bedroom mirror in Atlanta, reciting her daily mantra. "I am worthy, I am capable, I am enough." Her room was a study in contrasts, one wall plastered with coding certifications, a framed Forbes cover featuring her smiling face, and snapshots with tech titans. The other, a kaleidoscope of K-pop posters, overflowing shelves of stuffed animals, and the scattered remnants of unfinished homework. 13 years old, and she straddled two vastly different worlds. How did a 13-year-old find herself on the cover of Forbes? It started during the pandemic's darkest days when Naomi, just 9 years old, chose code over cartoons. While other kids lost themselves in Fortnite, Naomi devoured Python tutorials, relentlessly honing her skills. By 10, she identified a problem: students adrift in the sea of remote learning. Traditional tutoring was expensive and inaccessible. So she created Study Buddy, an app connecting struggling students with peer tutors who could explain complex concepts in relatable ways. It was a stroke of genius. Kids teaching kids. The app exploded, garnering 2 million downloads within 6 months. Students across all 50 states used it. Teachers recommended it. Parents praised it. Investment offers flooded in, all vying for a piece of what this 10-year-old had built. At 11, Naomi stunned everyone by selling Study Buddy for $4.2 million. But instead of splurging on mansions and sports cars, she invested. She hired a financial advisor, diversified her portfolio, and used a portion to launch something even more ambitious: Carter Youth Insights, a consulting firm that taught Fortune 500 companies how to connect with Generation Z. Who better to understand the youth market than someone living it? Major corporations paid Naomi thousands of dollars an hour for insights their own marketing departments couldn't grasp. Her advice was pure gold. By 13, Naomi's net worth had soared to $8.7 million, making her the youngest self-made millionaire in Georgia. Featured in Forbes, Business Insider, and Teen Vogue, she was invited to speak at conferences where she was often the only person in the room who couldn't legally drive. But success hadn't fundamentally changed Naomi. She still lived in the same house, diligently completed her homework, helped her mother with dishes, and still battled pre-presentation jitters. That morning, as Naomi packed for the Young Entrepreneurs Summit in Miami, where she was slated to be a keynote speaker, her mother, Dr. Patricia Carter, a high school principal and a single parent, entered the room. Patricia, who'd overcome adversity to become a first-generation college graduate, began braiding Naomi's hair, her fingers moving with the practiced ease of countless mornings. "Baby," she said, her voice both gentle and firm, "the world won't always see your brilliance first. They'll see a young black girl. Are you prepared for that?" Naomi met her mother's gaze in the mirror. "Mama, I've been preparing my whole life." Patricia paused, her hands trembling slightly. "I know, baby. I know you have. Just remember, your intelligence threatens people. Your success threatens people. Your blackness threatens people. Your age threatens people. That's a lot for one little girl to carry. She pulled Naomi close, her voice dropping to a whisper. And baby, sometimes your skin color alone is enough to trigger people. Sometimes your success becomes their headache. They see you winning, and it reminds them of their own failures. They see you confident, and it makes them feel small. They see you in spaces they think belong only to them, and it breaks something inside them. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your very existence challenges everything they've been taught about who deserves success. I'm not little anymore, Mama. Tears welled in Patricia's eyes as she embraced her daughter. You'll always be my little girl. But you're right. You're not a child anymore. You're extraordinary. You're powerful. You're brilliant. Just promise me you'll stay safe, stay humble, and most importantly, stay you. Don't let the world make you hard. Don't let their hate make you hateful. Don't let their fear make you fearful. Patricia unclasped a gold-cross necklace, the same one she'd worn at her own college graduation, and placed it around Naomi's neck. This kept me strong when people doubted me, she whispered. When professors didn't believe I belonged, when employers didn't think I was qualified, when the world tried to make me small, when my skin color made people uncomfortable, when my success made people angry. Let it remind you that you come from strength. You come from faith. You come from people who refuse to be broken, no matter how many times the world tried to break them. Naomi touched the cross, feeling its weight. I won't let you down, Mama. Baby, you could never let me down. I just want you to remember who you are. When people try to tell you who they think you should be, remember that their discomfort is not your problem. Their insecurity is not your burden. Their prejudice is not your truth. Naomi finished packing, placing her laptop, adorned with Black Girl Magic and Code Queen stickers, into her suitcase first, followed by her presentation materials and her journal, brimming with dreams and aspirations. The drive to the airport was quiet, filled with Patricia's lingering glances in the rearview mirror. At the departure drop-off, they shared one last hug. Show them what brilliance looks like, baby, Patricia whispered. I will, Mama, I promise. Naomi walked through the automatic doors, pulling her suitcase, plastered with stickers from her business travels behind her. Dressed in a young, gifted in black hoodie, skinny jeans, and light-up sneakers, she looked like any other teenager heading off on a trip. But Naomi Carter was anything but ordinary. At security, she moved with practiced efficiency. The TSA agent, a kind-faced older man, smiled. Flying solo today, sweetheart? Yes, sir. I'm going to Miami for a business conference. A business conference? Well, have a good flight now. Naomi settled at her gate and reviewed her presentation. Gen Z isn't your future customer. We're your current reality. Though she'd delivered variations of this speech before, butterflies fluttered in her stomach. Travelers bustled by, their eyes lingering on the young, black girl working on business materials. Their stares were suspicious, judgmental. An older white woman approached, her face etched with concern. Sweetheart, are you lost? Where are your parents? I'm fine, thank you. I'm traveling alone to a business conference. The woman's expression turned condescending. A business conference? Oh, that's adorable. What kind of business conference? Like a lemonade stand convention? The words stung, but Naomi had heard them before. No, ma'am. The Young Entrepreneurs Summit. I'm a keynote speaker. The woman actually laughed. Kids these days with their imaginations. Well, good luck with your lemonade stand, honey. She walked away chuckling. Naomi's jaw tightened. Arguing was pointless. They'd already decided who she was. A young black girl who couldn't possibly be successful, couldn't possibly be flying first class on her own dime, couldn't possibly be anything more than their limited imaginations allowed. Her skin color was a trigger. Her confidence was an offense. Her success was their headache. Then another voice. Naomi Carter? Naomi looked up at an Asian American woman in a business suit, her eyes bright with recognition. I thought that was you. I'm Linda Chin. I'm a tech investor, and I follow your company's work. Carter Youth Insights is doing incredible things. Naomi's face lit up. You know my work? Linda laughed. I tried to invest. Your business manager said you weren't looking for outside investors. Smart move. Too many young entrepreneurs give away equity too early. Naomi stood up, suddenly animated. I learned that lesson from studying other startups' mistakes. Debt and outside control can compromise your vision. I wanted to bootstrap and maintain autonomy over my company's direction. Linda raised her eyebrows, impressed. Wise beyond your years. Most CEOs twice your age don't understand that principle. She glanced at her boarding pass. Hey, I'm on your flight. If you need anything, let me know. Thank you, Miss Chin. That's very kind. The boarding announcement crackled. Zone 1, first class passengers. Naomi gathered her things and walked to the gate. The agent, a young white woman, scanned Naomi's boarding pass, her eyes widening. Oh, honey, this says first class. Are you sure your mommy didn't book the wrong seat? Naomi's practiced patience kicked in. It's correct, ma'am. Seat 2A. The agent exchanged a glance with her colleague. A look that questioned, doubted, and assumed a black child couldn't possibly afford first class. Enjoy your flight. Naomi walked down the jet bridge, hearing the whispered conversation behind her. First class? How does a kid afford that? Probably stole mommy's credit card. Or it's a make-a-wish thing. Each word was a small stone thrown at her back. Naomi's jaw tightened. This was nothing new. This was her reality every time she traveled. Her skin color made people suspicious. Her age made them dismissive. Her confidence made them hostile. When she stepped onto the plane, the temperature seemed to drop. Every head in first class turned to stare at her. The passengers, older, wealthy, predominantly white, looked at this 13-year-old black girl in a hoodie and light-up sneakers as if she'd wandered into the wrong section. The lead flight attendant, Rachel Morrison, approached, 38, blonde, with tired eyes. Her professional smile faltered into something colder when she saw Naomi. Well, hello there, sweetheart, Rachel said, her voice syrupy and fake. Are you looking for someone? No, ma'am, I'm in seat 2A. Rachel's smile vanished. Seat 2A? Are you sure? Naomi held up her boarding pass. Rachel snatched it, her face souring as she checked her tablet. Where are your parents? I'm traveling alone. I'm 13, so I don't require an adult escort. Rachel's eyes narrowed. And who exactly paid for this ticket? I did, ma'am. The silence was thick and uncomfortable. Rachel's expression made it clear what she was thinking. This black child did not buy a $1,200 first-class ticket. This black child does not belong here. This black child's very presence in this space is an offense. You, Rachel said slowly, her voice barely concealing her contempt. A child paid $1,200 for a first-class ticket? Yes, ma'am. Rachel turned toward the cockpit, speaking loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. Let me just verify this with the captain. In seat 1A, a wealthy businessman named Gerald Westbrook chuckled. Probably stole mommy's credit card. His wife, Diane, dripping in diamonds, added with false sympathy. Or it's one of those make-a-wish things. It's so sweet that airlines do that. Naomi's eyes began to water, but she blinked rapidly, refusing to cry. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Another flight attendant, a black man in his mid-30s with kind eyes, approached. His name tag read, Marcus. He spoke softly, respectfully. Miss, while we verify everything, can I help you with your bag? Thank you, Naomi whispered gratefully. As Marcus carefully stowed her suitcase, he leaned close and whispered, Don't let them get to you. You belong here just as much as anyone. I know what it's like. Your skin color becomes their problem, not yours. Remember that. Those words almost broke Naomi's composure. She nodded, slid into seat 2A, and gripped the armrest tightly, trying to steady her breathing. Rachel returned, her face twisted with annoyance. Well, apparently, it's legitimate. Settle in. The word apparently hung in the air like an accusation. A younger flight attendant, Jessica, began distributing warm towels. She smiled warmly at the Westbrooks, offering them towels with genuine hospitality. She gave one to Linda Chin with professional courtesy. But when she reached Naomi's row, she walked right past, not even making eye contact. Naomi noticed. Of course she noticed. Her skin color made her invisible when it was convenient and glaringly visible when it wasn't. Across the aisle, a Latino businessman, Carlos Martinez, caught Naomi's eye and gave her a subtle, supportive wink. A small gesture, but it reminded Naomi that not everyone in this cabin had decided she didn't belong. As the plane taxied, Naomi stared at the Atlanta skyline disappearing behind them. She thought about her mother's words and touched the cross necklace. She wondered, not for the first time, why success made some people respect you and others resent you. Why her skin color and age seemed to matter more than her achievements. Why she constantly had to prove she belonged in spaces she'd earned the right to occupy. Why being young, black, and successful made her a threat instead of an inspiration. But most of all, she wondered how long she could keep swallowing these indignities before something inside her finally broke. The plane lifted off. As it climbed into the clouds, Naomi had no idea that in less than an hour, she would stop wondering and start demanding answers. The seatbelt sign chimed off as the plane reached cruising altitude. 35,000 feet above the ground, Naomi opened her laptop and tried to focus on her presentation. The screen glowed with impressive analytics dashboards, market research data, and her company's logo. She was reviewing the speech she'd give tomorrow, a speech Fortune 500 executives had paid thousands to hear, but her throat was dry. She needed water and pressed the call button. Rachel appeared within seconds, already annoyed. "Yes? May I please have some water?" Naomi asked politely. Rachel crossed her arms. "We're about to start beverage service. You can wait." "Of course, thank you." Rachel walked away. Naomi returned to her laptop, assuming water would come soon with the beverage service. 20 minutes passed. Jessica and Rachel began pushing the beverage cart down the aisle. Naomi's throat felt like sandpaper, but she waited patiently. Rachel approached Gerald Westbrook with a warm, familiar smile. "Mr. Westbrook, champagne as always?" Gerald grinned. "You know me so well, Rachel. Only the best for our best passengers." Rachel cooed, pouring champagne. "And for you, Mrs. Westbrook, white wine, dear. Excellent choice." Her voice was warm honey. When she reached Linda Chin, the warmth dropped. "Ma'am, what can I get you?" "Green tea, please." Rachel's lips pressed into a thin line. "We'll see what we have." A curt nod to Carlos Martinez. "Sir?" Then the cart reached Naomi's row, and Rachel literally turned her back and started to push the cart past her seat, as if Naomi didn't exist. "Excuse me, ma'am," Naomi said, confused. Rachel didn't turn around. "What?" "I'd like some water, please." Rachel still didn't turn around. "We're out." Naomi could see at least 6 bottles of water clearly visible in the cart just 3 feet away. "I can see bottles right there." Rachel finally turned, her eyes cold as ice. "Those are reserved for paying passengers." The words hit Naomi like a blow. "I am a paying passenger." Rachel's voice dropped, dripping with contempt she no longer bothered to hide. "Sweetheart, I don't know what game you're playing or who bought your ticket, but first-class service is for first-class passengers. Real ones." The cabin seemed to go silent. Other passengers were watching, some with shock, others with uncomfortable curiosity. Naomi's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't understand. I just want water." Rachel leaned closer, her voice mean and cutting. "What you want is attention. Well, congratulations. You have mine, and I'm telling you no. Now be quiet before I call the captain." Linda Chin, who'd been watching with horror, spoke up sharply. "Excuse me, this is absurd. She asked for water, basic water." Rachel whirled on her, defensive. "Ma'am, I'm managing my cabin as I see fit." Linda's voice rose. "And I am telling you that by refusing service to a paying passenger, a child, that—" Gerald Westbrook interrupted, annoyed. "Oh, for God's sake, just give the kids some water so we can have peace and quiet." Rachel's face flushed. She'd been challenged by multiple passengers now, and her authority was slipping. Her embarrassment morphed into anger, and that anger needed a target. "Fine," Rachel spat. "Fine." She grabbed a bottle from the cart, but Naomi noticed immediately it wasn't water. It was apple juice. Naomi reached out hopefully, her small hand extended. "Thank you." And then it happened. Rachel took a step forward. Her foot caught on absolutely nothing. There was no turbulence, no bump, no reason for what happened next. In a movement that seemed almost deliberate, Rachel stumbled, and the entire bottle of apple juice went flying through the air. It happened in slow motion. The sticky, sweet juice cascaded through the air and splashed directly onto Naomi's laptop. The screen flickered once, twice. Sparks shot from the keyboard, and then it went dark. But it didn't stop there. The juice soaked into Naomi's lap, drenching her purple hoodie. It splashed across her presentation materials, months of carefully prepared research now bleeding into illegible mush. Her journal, where she'd written down every goal and dream since she was 10 years old, absorbed the liquid like a sponge. No, 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 Naomi gasped, frantically trying to save something. Anything. My presentation, my work. She grabbed napkins and tried to wipe her laptop, but it was too late. The screen remained dark. 6 months of work, presentations for tomorrow's conference, client files, everything. Her hands were shaking. Juice dripped from her hoodie onto the expensive first-class seat, and Rachel stood over her with the most exaggerated expression of fake concern. Oh my goodness, what a clumsy accident. Rachel's voice was theatrical, clearly performed for the other passengers. That's what happens when kids bring expensive things they can't afford to replace on planes. The implication was crystal clear. This was Naomi's fault for being here, for having nice things, for existing in a space where Rachel believed she didn't belong. Jessica rushed over with towels, her face genuinely distressed. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Here, let me. Juice dripped from her hoodie onto the expensive first-class seat, and Rachel stood over her with the most exaggerated expression of fake concern. Oh my goodness, what a clumsy accident. Rachel's voice was theatrical, clearly performed for the other passengers. That's what happens when kids bring expensive things they can't afford to replace on planes. The implication was crystal clear. This was Naomi's fault for being here, for having nice things, for existing in a space where Rachel believed she didn't belong. Jessica rushed over with towels, her face genuinely distressed. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Here, let me help. Rachel cut her off sharply. Jessica, I'll handle this. Go check on the economy. Jessica hesitated. But now, Rachel commanded. Jessica walked away reluctantly, looking back at Naomi with sympathy and guilt. Marcus appeared with more towels, kneeling beside Naomi's seat to help her clean up. His voice was soft and kind. Let's get you cleaned up, okay? Tears were flowing freely down Naomi's face now. My laptop, 6 months of work. My presentation is tomorrow. Do you have a backup? Marcus asked gently. Naomi's voice cracked. In the cloud, but the hardware, some files were only saved locally. Rachel stood over them both, her arms crossed, her expression showing zero remorse. Well, maybe next time you'll leave the toys at home. Naomi looked up at her, tears streaming down her young face. This isn't a toy. This is my business, my company. Rachel actually laughed, a cold mocking sound. Your company? What company does a 13-year-old run? A lemonade stand. From his seat, Gerald Westbrook chuckled along. Diane added, kids today think playing on computers makes them CEOs. Naomi's voice grew stronger despite the tears. Carter Youth Insights. I'm the founder and CEO. We do consumer analytics and consulting for major corporations. Rachel's fake sympathy somehow became even more cruel. That's adorable, sweetie. Really cute. But let's be real. Your parents probably set up some cute little website and you think that's a business. This is the real world. And in the real world, children don't buy first-class tickets. They don't run companies. They don't belong here. That word belong. It hit Naomi like a slap across the face because it revealed the truth beneath all of Rachel's actions. This wasn't about the ticket. It wasn't about the water. It wasn't even about the ruined laptop. It was about a 13-year-old black girl sitting in a space where Rachel believed she had no right to be. Rachel continued, emboldened by Naomi's tears, by her own anger, by 12 years of frustration and financial struggle. I've been working for 12 years. 12 years, and I'm barely making ends meet. I work 2 jobs. I can barely afford rent. And you expect me to believe that, a little girl? She caught herself, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. The words she didn't say were somehow louder than the ones she did. Carlos Martinez stood up from his seat, his voice firm. That's enough. You're way out of line. Rachel spun on him, defensive. I'm doing my job, sir. Your job is to serve passengers, Carlos shot back, not bully children. Linda Chin pulled out her phone, her fingers moving quickly. I'm documenting this. This is discrimination. Clear and obvious discrimination. Rachel's face went red. Discrimination against what? Rich, spoiled kids. Linda's voice turned ice cold. Against a black child who you've treated completely differently from every other passenger in this cabin. We all saw it. Every single person here watched you smile at them. She gestured at the Westbrooks and sneer at her. We watched you refuse her water while serving everyone else. We watched you destroy her property. And we heard you tell her she doesn't belong. Rachel's voice shook, caught between anger and something that might have been shame. How dare you? I am not. I would never. Naomi's voice cut through the argument, quiet but clear. You wouldn't serve me water. You said I didn't belong. You spilled juice on my laptop and mocked my work. Because you don't believe a girl who looks like me could possibly afford this seat. Honestly, silence fell over the cabin. Even Rachel seemed momentarily speechless. Then Rachel grasped for control, her voice shaking. You don't know what you're talking about. I treat everyone the same. Naomi wiped tears from her face, leaving sticky juice smears on her cheeks. Then why did you smile at them and sneer at me? No one answered. The silence was deafening. Rachel reached into her pocket and pulled out a voucher book, her hands trembling slightly. I'm offering you a $50 voucher for the inconvenience. Naomi's voice was hollow. My laptop is worth $2,000. The data on it is worth more than I can calculate. My presentation for tomorrow's conference is ruined, and you're offering me $50. Take it or leave it, sweetheart. The way Rachel said, sweetheart, made it sound like an insult. Like Naomi was nothing. Like she was nobody. Naomi stared down at her ruined laptop, her juice-stained hoodie, her destroyed presentation materials. She touched the cross necklace her mother had given her just that morning. She thought about her mother's words, don't let anyone make you small. And something inside her shifted. Her sadness hardened into something else, something stronger, something that had been building for 13 years of being underestimated, dismissed, and disrespected. Naomi reached into her backpack. Miraculously, it had stayed dry and pulled out her phone. Rachel smirked. Calling mommy. Naomi didn't respond. She unlocked her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Her fingers stopped on one name, David B. Transanzil. She took a deep breath. She was 13 years old, covered in apple juice with tears still drying on her face. But she'd had enough. She pressed the dial. If you're as outraged as I am right now, make sure you're subscribed, because what Naomi does next is absolutely legendary. Comment below. What would you have done in Naomi's position? Would you have stayed quiet or fought back? Let me know. The phone rang twice. Naomi put it on speaker because she was past caring who heard what she had to say. A professional voice answered. David Brennan's office. Naomi's voice was steady now, channeling every ounce of maturity she possessed. Hi, this is Naomi Carter. I need to speak with David immediately. Tell him it's urgent and regarding Flight 447. The assistant's tone was polite but dismissive. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan is in a meeting. Tell him Naomi Carter, CEO of Carter Youth Insights and shareholder of Transcontinental Airlines, needs him now. He'll take the call. Rachel's face, which had been smug, went pale. Gerald Westbrook scoffed loudly from his seat. Shareholder, you're a kid's delusional. The assistant's tone changed immediately. Please hold, Miss Carter. Music filled the cabin. 30 seconds of classical music that felt like an eternity. Every passenger in first class was silent now, watching this 13-year-old girl covered in juice, holding a phone like it was a weapon. Then a man's voice came through, concerned and alert. Naomi, what's wrong? Hi, David. Naomi's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed forward. I'm on one of your planes right now. Flight 447, Atlanta to Miami. Okay. David Brennan, the CEO of Transcontinental Airlines, sounded confused. Is there a problem? Naomi took a shaky breath. Your lead flight attendant, Rachel Morrison, employee number. She looked directly at Rachel's name tag and read it carefully. 447-2293 refused to serve me water, deliberately spilled juice on my laptop, destroying months of work, called my business a toy, told me I don't belong in first class, and has been treating me with hostility and contempt for the entire flight in front of witnesses. There was a pause. When David spoke again, his voice was tight with barely controlled anger. I need you to repeat that. Naomi did, her voice growing stronger with each word. Multiple passengers tried to intervene. She doubled down. David, I'm 13 years old. I paid for this ticket with my own money. I've been humiliated, degraded, and discriminated against at 35,000 FT. Let me speak with the flight attendant now. Rachel's hands were visibly shaking as she grabbed the phone from Naomi. Her voice came out in a stammer. Mr. Brennan, sir, this is a complete misunderstanding. David's voice came through the speaker like ice. Did you refuse service to Miss Carter? We were about to serve everyone. She was just impatient. Did you or did you not refuse to give her water? Rachel's face was bright red now. It was, she's a child. I didn't think you didn't think a black child belonged in first class. David's words cut through the cabin like a knife. I never said that. Rachel's voice rose defensively. Put Miss Carter back on the phone. Rachel practically threw the phone back to Naomi, her hands trembling so badly she almost dropped it. I'm here, Naomi said. What do you want me to do? David asked. Naomi looked out the window at the clouds below. She thought about every time someone had dismissed her, every time someone had assumed she was nobody, every time someone had made her feel small, and she made a decision that would change everything. Turn the plane around. Silence. Complete and total silence. You want David's voice was stunned. You want to ground the flight. I want this plane to return to Atlanta, Naomi said, her voice clear and unwavering. I want to address this face to face. I want everyone on this aircraft to understand that this behavior has consequences. Naomi, that's a huge ask. 200 passengers, crew schedules, gate fees, fuel costs. I'll personally compensate every passenger for their inconvenience. $500 each, plus rebooking on the next available flight, upgraded if they weren't already first class. That's $100,000. I'll cover it. Gasps rippled through the first class cabin. Passengers who'd been pretending not to listen were now openly staring. You're serious, David said, and it wasn't a question. I've never been more serious in my life. Naomi's voice strengthened with each word. I'm a 13-year-old girl who worked hard for everything I have. I earned my success. I paid for this ticket with money I made, and I'm being treated like garbage because of how I look and how old I am. If this is how your airline treats passengers, treats children, then we have a major problem. And as a shareholder, I have the right to demand accountability. There was a long pause. Naomi could almost hear David calculating, weighing the costs, considering the implications. How many shares do you own, Naomi? Naomi's answer was precise. 47,000 shares purchased 6 months ago through my investment manager. At current market value, that's approximately $2.1 million invested in your airline. Rachel literally staggered backward, grabbing the seat behind her for support. Gerald Westbrook's mouth fell open so wide you could see his expensive dental work. Diane Westbrook's hand flew to her pearl necklace, clutching it like a lifeline. Linda Chin smiled slightly, nodding with satisfaction. David's voice came through the phone filled with resignation and what might have been respect. You own Jesus. You're absolutely right. You have every right to demand this. I'm calling the captain right now. Flight 447 is returning to Atlanta. Thank you, David. Naomi, his voice softened. I'm so sorry this happened. This isn't who we are. This isn't who we want to be. Naomi's voice became small again, the vulnerable 13-year-old breaking through the CEO persona. I really hope not. She ended the call. The plane was absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the carpeted aisle. Rachel stood frozen, her face the color of fresh snow. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. You're really? Rachel finally managed to whisper. Naomi looked up at her, exhausted and covered in drying apple juice. Really? What? Really successful? Really? A shareholder? Really? Someone who deserved basic human dignity? The intercom crackled to life, making everyone jump. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reynolds speaking. The pilot's voice sounded bewildered. We've received a request from our corporate office to return to Atlanta due to an urgent passenger matter. We'll be landing in approximately 35 minutes. We apologize for any inconvenience. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for turnaround. Chaos erupted. What are you kidding me? I have a meeting in Miami. What urgent matter? This is insane. Passengers were pulling out phones, complaining loudly, demanding explanations. The entire cabin descended into confusion and anger. Naomi unbuckled her seatbelt and stood on her seat. She was so small that even standing on the expensive leather cushion, she was barely taller than the seated passengers around her. "Excuse me," her young voice cut through the noise. "Everyone, please. I'm sorry. This is my fault." The cabin gradually quieted, all eyes turning to the 13-year-old girl standing on seat 2A, covered in apple juice with tears still streaking her face. "My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 13 years old." She took a deep breath. "I asked this plane to turn around because I was discriminated against, humiliated, and had my property destroyed by a flight attendant. I know this affects all of you, every single person on this plane. So I'm personally giving every passenger $500 plus rebooking you on the next available flight with upgrades. You'll all be compensated for this delay. I'm truly, truly sorry for the inconvenience." She sat back down, suddenly looking very young and very tired and very small. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Linda Chin started clapping. Slow, deliberate applause that echoed through the cabin. Carlos Martinez joined in, his applause strong and supportive. Then several other passengers began clapping. Even some passengers from economy class who'd heard the announcement over the intercom started applauding, their hands visible between the seats. But not everyone was supportive. An angry businessman in row 3 stood up. "This is absolutely ridiculous. Over spilled juice. You're inconveniencing 200 people over a clumsy accident." Linda Chin stood up too, her voice sharp. "It wasn't about juice, it was about dignity. It was about a child being discriminated against because of her age and her race. And if you can't see that, if you can't understand why that matters, then you're part of the problem." The businessman sat back down, grumbling. Rachel had collapsed into the flight attendant jump seat, her head in her hands. Her shoulders shook. She might have been crying, but it was hard to tell. Jessica, the young flight attendant, who'd been forced to walk away earlier, came and sat beside Naomi. Her eyes were red. "I'm so sorry," Jessica whispered. "I should have stood up for you. I should have said something, done something. I was just scared of Rachel, scared of losing my job, and I let her treat you like that. I'm so, so sorry." Naomi looked at her. "You're young. You were scared. I get it. But you're younger than me," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "And you're braver than I've ever been." Marcus appeared with a first-class blanket, soft and warm and expensive. He draped it gently around Naomi's shoulders. "You're going to change things, kid," he said quietly. "I know it. I've worked for this airline for 8 years, and I've seen things that shouldn't happen. But nobody ever did anything about it until you." Naomi pulled the blanket tighter around herself, suddenly feeling cold despite the cabin temperature. She looked out the window as the plane began banking, turning in a wide arc back toward Atlanta. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I just wanted water." Marcus squeezed her shoulder gently. "I know, kiddo. I know." The plane descended through the clouds, heading back toward the city they'd left less than an hour ago. Passengers were on their phones, some angry, some understanding, some already posting on social media about the unprecedented event unfolding at $35,000 FT. Rachel hadn't moved from the jump seat. Her perfectly styled hair was coming undone. Her makeup was smeared. Her hands trembled in her lap. Gerald Westbrook was frantically typing on his phone, probably trying to reschedule whatever important meeting he thought he had. Diane Westbrook just stared at Naomi with an expression that was hard to read. Shy, maybe, or shame. Linda Chin caught Naomi's eye and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Carlos gave her a small salute, and Naomi sat wrapped in her blanket covered in apple juice, her laptop dead in her bag, her presentation ruined, her conference speech destroyed. But for the first time in her entire life, She felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd done something that mattered more than any business deal or keynote speech. She'd drawn a line in the sand. She'd said enough. She'd refused to be small. The plane continued its descent. Atlanta's skyline appeared in the distance, growing larger with each passing minute. And somewhere in that city, news vans were probably already racing toward Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport because word was spreading fast. A 13-year-old girl had grounded a commercial airliner, and the world was about to find out why. Drop a like on this video if you think Naomi did the right thing, and make sure you're subscribed because the confrontation that's about to happen at that airport is absolutely incredible. Question for you. Do you think grounding the plane was too extreme, or was it the perfect response? Let me know in the comments. The plane touched down on the runway with a slight bump, tires screeching against asphalt. Passengers sat in tense silence, some checking their watches, others still typing furiously on their phones. Naomi gathered her ruined belongings with trembling hands. Her backpack was sticky, her hoodie was stiff with dry juice. Her laptop sat dead and useless at the bottom of her bag. But she held her head high as the plane taxied toward the gate. She caught her reflection in the window, a young black girl with braided hair coming slightly undone, tired eyes rimmed with red from crying, a stained hoodie that had once proudly proclaimed young, gifted, and black. She looked exactly like what she was, a 13-year-old kid who'd been through something traumatic. But there was something else in that reflection too, something steel-like, something that hadn't been there before. The captain's voice came over the intercom one more time. "Ms. Carter, there's a reception committee waiting for you at the gate." Rachel finally lifted her head from her hands. Her mascara had run in dark rivers down her cheeks. Her eyes were swollen and red. For the first time since the flight began, she looked human, broken. Jessica stood beside her, speaking softly. "Rachel, you have to face this." Rachel's voice was barely audible. "I can't believe she's just a kid." "How does a kid?" Marcus interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. "That's your problem, Rachel. That's your problem right there. You kept seeing just a kid. You didn't see a person deserving respect. You saw her age, her skin color, and you made assumptions. And now you have to face the consequences of those assumptions." The plane came to a complete stop. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Nobody moved. Finally, Naomi stood up. At 13, she was small, even by teenage standards, but somehow she seemed to fill the entire cabin. She pulled her backpack over her shoulders, grabbed her rolling suitcase, and walked down the aisle toward the exit. Every passenger watched her go. Some looked guilty, some looked supportive, some still looked angry about the inconvenience, but they all watched. As Naomi reached the plane door, the flight crew stood in a line. Marcus stepped forward and whispered, "You're remarkable. Don't forget that." Naomi managed a small smile. "Thank you for being kind." She stepped into the jet bridge, and that's when she saw them. At the gate, there was what could only be described as a reception committee. David Brennan, CEO of Transcontinental Airlines, 50-something, impeccably dressed in an expensive suit, his face lined with stress. Beside him stood the HR director, a woman in her 40s with a tablet clutched to her chest. A legal team of 3 people in matching corporate attire, airport security officers, airport officials in their distinctive uniforms, and behind all of them, somehow having gotten wind of the story already, were news crews, cameras, reporters, microphones. David Brennan stepped forward as Naomi emerged from the jet bridge, his face a mixture of distress and something that might have been admiration. But Naomi walked past him. Her eyes were locked on Rachel Morrison, who had just exited the plane behind her, looking like she was walking to her own execution. The two of them stood face to face. 13-year-old girl, 38-year-old woman. The entire airport seemed to hold its breath. Naomi's voice was quiet but clear. "Why?" Rachel's face crumpled. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." Naomi's voice didn't rise, but it cut like a blade. "You meant every word, every dismissal, every moment of cruelty." "So I'm asking you why." Rachel's hands twisted together. Tears streamed down her face, cutting through the remains of her makeup. Because it's not fair." "What's not fair?" And then something broke inside Rachel. The words came pouring out like a dam had burst. I've worked my whole life. My whole life. I have 2 jobs. I work 60 hours a week, and I still can barely afford rent. I've never flown first class, even though I work in first class every single day. I serve champagne to people who don't even say thank you. I smile at passengers who treat me like I'm invisible. And I accept it because I need the paycheck, because I have bills, because I have no other choice. Rachel's voice rose, becoming almost frantic. And then you walk on the plane, 13 years old, a child, and you have more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. You're flying first class like it's nothing. You're wearing sneakers that probably cost more than my car payment. You have a laptop worth thousands of dollars. You talk about your company, your presentations, your success, and you're just a kid. She was sobbing now, the words barely coherent. And I know it's wrong. I know it's not your fault, but I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand seeing you have everything I've worked for and will never achieve. And when you asked for water, something in me just snapped. I wanted you to feel small. I wanted you to feel like you didn't belong, because if you belong there, what did that say about me? The airport terminal was absolutely silent. Everyone, passengers, airline staff, security, reporters, stood frozen, listening to this confession. Naomi's voice was soft. So you punished me for your pain. Rachel nodded, unable to speak, her body shaking with sobs. You saw a black girl in first class, Naomi continued, and you assumed I didn't earn my seat. You saw my age and assumed I was playing pretend. You saw my success and felt it diminished yours. But Ms. Morrison, Naomi stepped closer. My success isn't your failure. My seat doesn't take away your worth. The fact that I have money doesn't mean you deserve to struggle, and my skin color and my age don't make me less deserving of respect. Rachel looked up at her, mascara-stained face twisted with anguish. I know, got to. I'm a horrible person. No, Naomi said firmly. You're a hurt person who hurt someone else. There's a difference. The system that underpays you, that makes you work 2 jobs to survive, that makes you serve champagne to people who make in a day what you make in a year. That's the problem. But you took your pain and you aimed it at me, a 13-year-old girl, because I was an easier target than the system that's actually hurting you. David Brennan stepped forward, his voice authoritative. Ms. Morrison, you're suspended, pending a full investigation. Effective immediately, Rachel nodded numbly, seeming to shrink into herself, but Naomi raised her hand. Wait. Everyone turned to look at her. Don't fire her. David's eyebrows shot up. Naomi, I know what she did. Naomi interrupted. I know better than anyone, but firing her doesn't fix anything. It doesn't change the belief she has. It doesn't help her understand why what she did was wrong. It just makes her angry. And then she takes that anger out on the next person who reminds her of her own pain. Linda Chin, who'd followed the group off the plane, spoke up. You're remarkable. Truly remarkable. Naomi turned to the news cameras that were now openly filming. Can I say something? Reporters surged forward, microphones extended. Naomi stood in front of them, 13 years old, covered in dried apple juice, exhausted beyond measure, and she looked directly into the cameras. My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 13 years old. I'm the CEO of Carter Youth Insights. I'm a shareholder in Transcontinental Airlines, and today I grounded a plane. A reporter called out, "Why did you ground the plane, Naomi?" Naomi took a breath. Because I was discriminated against. Because a flight attendant saw a young black girl and decided I didn't deserve basic service. Because she destroyed my property and mocked my success. Because she told me I didn't belong. And I want people to know something, especially young people, especially black and brown kids, especially girls. Respect is not negotiable. Dignity is not debatable, and success has no age limit. Never let anyone make you small. If this story moved you, if it inspired you, if it made you think differently about respect and dignity and standing up for yourself, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And most importantly, remember Naomi's lesson. You belong. Wherever you are, whatever space you're in, you belong. Who in your life needs to hear Naomi's story? Tag them in the comments and tell me, what's one time you wish you'd stood up for yourself but didn't? Let's talk about it because your story matters just as much as Naomi's. Thank you for watching, and remember, never let anyone make you.